Hello and welcome everybody to the first episode of the 1022 podcast with myself, Stuart Ross, and my good friend Connor Ward. We have been discussing the possibility of doing a wrestling podcast together for quite some time now. So this is a very exciting moment for the pair of us to finally be able to record and release our very first podcast. So thank you very much for tuning in. This is predominantly going to be a wrestling podcast with features, i.e. fantasy bookings. We're also going to have a look at predictions for pay-per-views coming up, and we're just going to basically just talk everything that you could possibly imagine about wrestling. So in this first episode, what we're going to be discussing is how we got into wrestling ourselves, how we would probably get somebody into wrestling that doesn't watch the product, and also some of our favourite matches and our favourite wrestlers, just to give you a bit of a background and insight into the kind of WWE fans that we are. If you just want to minimise the tab, you can carry on with the rest of your browsing day as you listen to the beautiful voice of Connor Ward and myself. So we're just going to do a little bit of background to find out how we got into wrestling, and hopefully people will find it interesting. So there is a 10-year age gap between the pair of us. I haven't groomed him.
And the wrestling era.
Yeah, me getting into it is going to be different to you. So I'm interested to find out how you got into it. So what was the first time you watched men in pants roll around
Sweaty.
in a ring?
I'd say 2000, late 2003 to going into 2004, when Cena was fresh on the scene, and not his United States. It was towards the end.
Is this heel Cena or face Cena?
This was face Cena.
Face
I
Cena.
believe, yeah.
Or turning face Cena.
Turning face Cena. It was towards. He hadn't quite won the. I think he did won the WWE Championship. He was in his feud with JBL still, like going into it.
Okay.
I believe, and then well past his debut. But that was around the time. My first match I can't quite remember, but I remember Chris Jericho's beautiful face lighting up the screen one time. I don't even think it was Raw. I think it was on Sky One on a Sunday, Heat or something like that, or Velocity. Yeah,
a bit of that.
Some really bad host was talking through the matches. That was the first really introduction, bit of taste I had.
Bit of taste into it.
Yeah.
So was it friends, family, or was it just
all my friends? I realised were into it, but I had no idea. No one really spoke about it. It was all about mainly football.
Was it not the cool thing to talk about?
No, like my brothers never watched it. They're more into really pathetic sports like fishing.
Or bridge.
He used to watch like this terrible documentaries about catching fish, and then I'd then turn it over to someone being put through a table, and apparently I was the queer one of the family. But no one watched it. My uncles watched it in the early 90s, late 80s to 90s. They had all the action figures and they gave it to me for my birthday. So I had like Hulk Hogan with like one finger left and stuff like that, and like Randy Savage. And then my favourite one, which is quite well, I don't know how they still collected them after they finished watching them. So my favourite figure was it didn't even look like the wrestler. It was Chris Benoit. Believe it or not, he was like 10 foot tall. His legs were really lanky, and his nose was bitten off. It was my favourite toy. I didn't realise at the time when I got him that obviously the tragedy that
well,
happened.
to be fair, if that was 2003 when.
Oh no, this was back when I was giving it later on.
Oh,
I was giving it around the time it happened, and
okay.
I just remember my mum coming over to me and saying, "You can't play with that toy anymore." And I was like, "Why the fuck not? It's Chris Benoit, Robert Wolverine, you know, like." I was just doing the diving headbutt from the top of the landing railing onto Kurt Angle, and next thing I know, Chris Benoit's toy disappears. I only find out a few years later when I finally understand what happened, because I probably thought it was a work, to be honest.
Wow.
Being a young boy.
That is
I didn't understand. It came on when it came on the screen. When it happened, this man came out. I shouldn't be laughing really, but when it came on the screen, but in memory of Chris Benoit, I was like, well, because the amount of times of fake deaths and stuff like that, I didn't believe it at first, and I still didn't.
Well, in fairness, Vince McMahon had blown himself up in a limousine like 3 weeks earlier.
Exactly.
And I do believe, if my memory serves me correct, they did actually they tolled the bell 10 times for Vince McMahon, like 3 weeks before Raw. So I can understand where you're coming from. Plus, I mean, you were like, what, 11?
No, it wasn't even that. No, I was
like 9 at the time.
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, so
I didn't really comprehend what was going on.
Different context.
But I still believed that everything that was going on the show was legitimate. Like the storylines that was happening, you know, I thought it actually was happening. That was my favourite time being a wrestling fan.
Was when you
were 100%, you know,
you in that kayfabe world.
Yeah. Surrounded. You just believe everything you're told by your favourite face wrestler, even though I was more of a heel kid.
Yeah, because with the 10-year gap, right, I got into wrestling way before you did. In fact, I think my first match I ever watched was probably the year you were born.
I was probably still a bit of sperm in my dad's ball bag when you first.
You probably were, because 1998 SummerSlam was the first kind of pay-per-view that I remember watching a little bit of.
Well, I must have just been.
So you were like, what, a month old, 6 weeks old? That's how old I am, guys. I got into it a little bit, like, during that period of time, but like early 99 was when I really got into it. I remember my dad watching it when I was a kid. I'm sure, I could be wrong, I'm sure I watched the last 5 minutes of the 95 Royal Rumble with Shawn Michaels with the 1 foot over the thing, and I remember telling my dad, but he's lost, he can't win, because I just saw a guy in a Union Jack and I was like, yeah, it's got to be him. And then I never watched wrestling again after that until like late 98, early 99, right inside the Attitude Era. It was kind of like the new cool thing that kids did at school. Everybody was talking about it, everybody was watching it, everybody was wrestling each other, because that's kind of what you did.
Was that the fallout of the Monday Night Wars when you started getting right into it?
No, it was actually right in the middle.
Because was it, what you say, 98 SummerSlam? So when the tide started to turn towards WWE?
Yeah, so it was on its progression way back into...
Did you watch WCW?
No.
Not even...
I think I probably watched like 2 episodes in like 2000, only because it was on Channel 4. And one of my mates at school was like heavily into WCW, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you got to watch this," but I just couldn't get into it. It was trash. It's what it was by the time we were watching it, or by the time he was watching it. But he thought it was the greatest thing ever. So I just stuck to WWE. It was a much better product. They had better stories. They had better wrestlers. They just had more. I don't know. I mean, the production value of it probably wasn't as high as WCW because they spent a lot of money on it. But every time you turn the TV on, there's a crowd sign everywhere. Hundreds and thousands of them. If you go back and watch old Raws, you'll see just this colour collage of things. Plus, my main man, The Rock, came out of his shell late 98, early 99. He just turned to face Stone Cold. But although he was a heel, I still loved him. With the eyebrow, the stupid elbow. It's probably the worst finishing move in wrestling history, besides the worm. Because it is just a bounces off the rope, and elbow drop. But I loved it.
It's iconic.
I was only a kid. I was like 10, 11. Loved it. And he used to just call everybody out, and he had the catchphrases. And he kind of like, I just remember watching him. But because I didn't really get the whole Austin McMahon feud, because by the time I started watching it, it was after everybody else had already seen it. I just kind of watched him and Triple H go for the IC belt in late 98. And then that transferred into The Rock going for the WWF title in 99. But there was Austin at the top with The Undertaker. Now, I love The Undertaker, right? And I know that you've got some reservations about that, and we'll go into that. But it was always Austin and Taker at the top. And then The Rock and Triple H just kept finding themselves just underneath, trying to push through that glass ceiling. And it was a good time to get into wrestling. I mean, it was easy for me to talk about it with my friends at school because it was the cool thing. I mean, obviously a couple of years later it kind of dropped off and it wasn't the cool thing anymore. If it's something that you enjoy, I think you should just go with it. I mean, The Rock left, but he's always in my heart.
I don't think he would have been seen as one as iconic as he is if he continued. If he didn't leave. If he done a Cena.
Do you not think?
No, I don't think so.
Do you think it's because it was short and sweet?
It was, wasn't it? If you look at his prime years, when he was, what's his stupid ass name? Rocky Maivia,
yeah,
right.
When he debuted,
right. No one, and people won't even remember that just because they're like, do you remember when The Rock was a pussy bitch? And then they go, oh yeah, when he was, you know, the shitty hair and the crap finisher and the blue. Yeah. But when he was The Rock. But it was only for a few years. It's like Austin as well. Austin, because of his injury, such short careers, they're always seen as. It's like if Hogan went on too long.
Yeah, that I think
Flair went on too long. Sorry, and you know my comments about Flair. And the one who's doing it right now is The Undertaker. He is going on way too long. I think he should have been gone years ago.
But you see, here's my bit, because I know that you've got a lot of emotion in you about The Undertaker. But before we get to that bit, I just want people to understand what your view on him is, character-wise, before you go off and delve into the dark mind of Connor Ward's Undertaker hatred. Because your favourite version of The Undertaker is most likely everybody's least favourite.
Yeah, it is.
So what's your favourite version of The Undertaker?
Well, it's American Badass. And
now
it's the big old Harley, the wicked music. That, you know, I drive to work and my playlist tends to be, I change it up, but my wrestling playlist, I'll start off with Eric Bischoff and then it'll go into Vince McMahon, and that's when I'm getting ready. Then I'll end it with Undertaker's American Badass music, you know, and that'll get me so pumped. And when it hit, it's just the bass of it, everything. It's a good theme song. And then I went round my friends the other day and I watched the streak ending, and I realised actually the match and the music was, you know, his music is shit. It's boring and shit, and his entrance takes so goddamn fucking long. It just kills the excitement for the match. And then that match though as well, I realised, going a bit off topic, that match was fucking shit. The crowd weren't even into it.
Oh no, they weren't. But
it was so dead. And I realised The Undertaker can't do anything. All he can do is his submission moves. He struggled to do old school. He really struggled to do it. And I was like, when does it come to a point where he just says, you know what? It time's up. I'm embarrassing myself now.
Yeah, you are. Sorry, dude. The first version of The Undertaker you see, or that you've seen, or your generation have seen, is dude in leather pants with Dead Man Inc. slapped on the side of his thigh.
In a feud with Test.
And yeah, in a feud. Well, when he came back, he was kind of main event scene.
That's not my earliest.
You haven't seen before that.
That's not my earliest. My earliest memory of The Undertaker is when he was the Dead Man again. When he came back.
WrestleMania 20.
When he wasn't, yeah, he was no longer American Badass. He came back and he was back as the Dead Man. And I remember, obviously because of the network now, I can look back, and then but then that sort of fuzzes with the memories I actually have from sitting and watching it. So sitting and watching The Undertaker, because I don't really care about him, earliest memory is probably his feuds with Batista, his feuds with Edge. And I didn't mind him, but I didn't really care about him. Like, I didn't understand when he had like the whole year off, when he started going into part time and only returned for WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And it's saying, "Oh, Undertaker returns on Raw tonight." I couldn't give a shit. That was my poo break for Raw, to be honest. When he was walking to the ring, because I could have a big old poo, come back, or make myself a sandwich, come back, and he'd still be walking up the steps about to take his hat off. So that's my earliest memory is him being a Dead Man, and then that made me really dislike. It's just how boring he is. But then I went on to say Network, watched American Badass, and go, oh, I like that guy. A lot of people don't.
No,
I like that guy.
A lot of people don't. I mean, I personally don't like that version of The Undertaker. I wasn't particularly too keen, or I'm not particularly too keen on the later versions of The Undertaker, like the last 4 or 5 years where he has gone part-time. However, I remember him from 1998 and...
Like the Ministry.
So the Ministry of Darkness, where they legitimately abducted people, brainwashed them, and they came out as part of his Ministry of Darkness, to the point where I think they did a couple on stage. I'm pretty sure they did a couple. I remember the Acolytes dragging who then turned into Midian. I remember they dragged him out the ring, and you just watched him get taken out the back, and then the next thing you know, he's come back totally as Midian. He's a bit of a jobber. They created the corporate ministry, where they merged with the corporation. So you had Vince McMahon's faction, you had the Undertaker's faction, and they went, you know what? We're going to beat the crap out of Stone Cold. Let's merge together. That's effectively what happened. But I remember him as the dead man with all the bells and whistles of the T-Cross when they were going to sacrifice Stone Cold on Raw or sacrifice Stephanie McMahon. Now, when you say it in context in 2016, it's...
Sounds pathetic.
Yeah. But at the time, it's cutting edge, it's something new. And he was really evil. His character was evil. You knew when that music hit, which is virtually the same version as the entrance music he's got now, but you knew that it meant something. And that's why I have a different view on him than you do, because you think that he's boring as fuck.
I think Kane's better. Which, every time I say that, every wrestling fan I know cringes at that
why is Kane better? And in fact, which version of Kane's better? Are we talking Mask, post-Mask?
No, Mask.
Corporate Kane?
The Mask Kane, where he was unknown. No one knew who he was. No one knew what he looked like. He didn't speak. He just came out, destroyed his opponents, set fire to shit, and then walked out. And that, even though, like, I remember, because when I started getting into it, it was around the time he lost and had to unmask, and like RVD was like, and took it off, and he had that curly, shitty hair.
Oh, but with the charcoal across his face.
Yeah, charcoal across his face, and when he, like, I spoke to you before, tombstone Linda McMahon on the stage. Beautiful, beautiful moment for me. But that Kane is not the one that I enjoy. I think that's quite... That when they took the mask off him, it sort of took away the mystery of him and sort of just killed it. But when he had the mask, when I look back on, see old DVDs, because my uncle used to give me the old DVDs that I used to buy. When I used to watch the old Kane, when I was a kid, I used to be like generally scared of him. Like, he was a freak. He was massive. He came in, tore the cell door off, and then, like, even I don't like The Undertaker, I knew as a kid The Undertaker was a big business. And he just tombstones it. And then that was it, and walks out. And that was it. Just comes in, tears it off, and then no explanation. It's fantastic.
You haven't seen the story beforehand. Because the story beforehand is his brother died in a fire. Paul Bearer comes out and says Kane's still alive. Because nobody really understands why The Undertaker burnt down his own house with his parents and his brother inside. Because that's kind of where the backstory comes from. And then he makes his big entrance inside Hell in a Cell.
Which is fantastic.
Which is probably one of the greatest debuts.
Yeah, apart from the dentist, Isaac
Yankum. Isaac Yankum. Or the Christmas creature. You won't remember that one. You were far too young and innocent to remember the Christmas creature. He was basically just a guy that came out in green with like baubles and stuff on him.
I'm really glad
in like Memphis wrestling.
Yeah.
To beat up Jerry Lawler. Good times.
He's another one I don't like. I think what I've realised is I don't like any wrestler I know, like, for a fact. I don't like Randy Savage. I don't like Hulk Hogan. I didn't like Ultimate Warrior. I didn't like Lex Luger. I don't know any of them from that, because obviously I grew up with Rey Mysterio doing backflips on Tajiri for the Cruiserweight Championship and all this like Philippi, all these big power bombs and that. Then I watched back when it was getting big, when he went on all territorial, and like Hogan was top. That wrestling is it's just so pure shit. I don't understand how people. I know it may offend quite a lot of people. I don't understand how people watched it. I cannot watch those old matches. Like the promos.
But is that...
It's a bunch of sweaty, steroid-fueled men shouting at poor Mean Gene.
I mean, he swore himself.
Yeah.
But okay then. In that case, it doesn't seem to translate as well sports or wrestling, as well as music, for example. Like you could listen to music from the 80s and enjoy it.
My music taste is all past. It's not. I don't much.
So
modern day.
Like films and stuff, you can go back and watch something from the 50s and the 60s, and it still means something. Whereas wrestling, I don't think you can go back. I can't go back and watch stuff. Because one topic that we're going to go through on a future podcast is top favourite matches from different eras. Now, one of mine, spoiler alert, is going to be an Iron Man match. However, I can't go back and watch Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels without skipping through it on the network because it is boring. It is boring. If you're going to show somebody a classic wrestling match to get them involved into wrestling, say somebody says, do you know what, I want to see what this is all about. What match would you show them to get them into wrestling? What would you put to them and go, do you know what, that is what wrestling is all about. That is what this product is all about.
Would that be for today, or would that be
today? So today, if one of your friends turned around to you and said, show me a match so I can understand why you love wrestling so much. Could be any match from history, but what would you show them to get them to understand why you enjoy watching it?
I have two in mind. That would be because the reason why the kind of wrestling I like is not typical. It's not wrestling like it's not like I love watching Kurt Angle, but the wrestling side of it, submissions and stuff. I hate submission matches. I think they're the worst thing ever. I find them boring. Stuff like chair shots to the head and going through tables and stuff mixed in with good wrestling. So the first one would be the Triple H Shawn Michaels in 2002, the street fight.
Okay.
Just because you've got that element of the bins and the sledgehammers, and then the blood, but then you've got two of the greatest of all time, and then also the show, the showcase of the best friend betraying another. So you got the story with it. It's not just hitting each other until they bleed. It's got a story to it. But then wrestling wise, it would be, even though it completely goes against what I've said previously.
Is it Big Dick Johnson versus the Three Divas in the Christmas handicap match?
Oh, it's his favourite moment would be John Cena FU in Michael Cole, in all these wrestling gear. No, it would be Undertaker Shawn Michaels WrestleMania.
So the Undertaker.
But even though I love the second one more, the first one I'd show someone.
So you'd show the first one
because of like the false finishes because they don't go. There's quite a few, but they're good. Like every single time they go for a pin, you believe that there's gonna hit free. You can every time you watch WrestleMania, you sort of it's in the back of your head where Undertaker could lose here, but he won't. He definitely won't. So that Shawn Michaels match, it got to the point where you was like, holy shit, he could actually get a free count here. And then that sort of gets you jumping up and really into the match. So I have one of them two, but I still hate the Undertaker. I'll never like him. But in that one match, he was probably one of his greatest matches of all time. Helped because he was in the ring with the greatest performer of all time. Just like prime example of his ability, SummerSlam 2005, was it, against Hogan? The selling in that was absolutely fantastic.
The most ridiculous match.
I've never seen a guy take a leg drop like Shawn Michaels in that match. That was fantastic.
Is it the leg drop or the big boot that's more impressive? Because I'm sure the big boot, he gets booted, he falls down, takes the bump, gets up, swirls around, does a triple Salco, and then just falls to the floor as Hulk Hogan's just stood there waiting for him. But that's what you get for politicking your way out of losing a match clean in 2005 when you're Hulk Hogan.
Especially with a personality like Shawn Michaels.
So I like the fact that you've picked two matches where there's a decent backstory going into it, because you can't, in my opinion, you can't sit somebody down and just show them a match where they don't know what the characters are. They don't understand.
Oh, so it's a major part of investing in the gimmicks. Is a major part of why we enjoy wrestling.
Yeah. So I mean, if I had to do the same, I would definitely show them Shawn Michaels and Triple H from SummerSlam, because even with that promo package, I think you could show that promo package to anybody that doesn't even know there's going to be a fight or there's a WWE fight, and they would want to sit down and watch that. But the other match which I'd pick is totally different. There is a few shenanigans in there, but I would pick Eddie Guerrero versus Brock Lesnar at No Way Out 2004 for the WWE Championship, including promo package, mainly because the whole story going into that is Brock Lesnar is this undefeated beast, and he's so good and he's so powerful. Eddie Guerrero is a guy who was a cruiserweight, then came to the WWE. He's had his demons, he's had his problems, gone away, he's fixed himself up. And this was actually his first ever shot at the WWE Championship. And yes, Goldberg comes in and spears Brock Lesnar to set their match up at WrestleMania. But just the emotion of the crowd and the fact that you wanted him to topple the bad guy is brilliant. There are some false finishes in there. But I would show them that match because I think it's something a little bit different, and it's kind of like the David versus Goliath, you can't beat me, rather than Triple H Booker T at WrestleMania, where people like you can't wear this championship. Obviously referring to the fact that Booker T was formerly of WCW and nothing else. Gotta love wrestling, and that's why we're here. So that's kind of like how you get somebody invested into it. So why don't we? Here we go. This one could be rather different. So what would be your favourite match
of all time?
Just the favourite match.
I don't know if I could put that in a
Or what?
Well, the reason why I can't pick it is because
Because your laptop's dead and you can't read your list. I'm joking. I didn't
even have it on there. I tried to pick one. And it ended up being like a list of 8. I can pick 3.
Okay.
I can put them into 3. So the 2 that I'd show people who've never seen wrestling, so the Triple H and the Undertaker match, that they would definitely be in there. I think. Third one is one I don't think I've really heard on many other people's lists, but it suits the reason why I like wrestling. It's the first TLC match for the WrestleMania with the tag team with the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian.
TLC 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd go. That's probably one just because the amount of spots. It's just like there's so many spots in it. Like 1 minute you see one of the Dudleys getting like powerbombing Matt Hardy through a table, and then next Jeff Hardy's got the title and Edge spears him from the top of the ladder off the title. It's just spot after spot after spot, and that is, it just makes you go, holy shit, that must fucking hurt. But then it gets. I wasn't really rooting like when I watched it when I was learning about like the your sort of time of wrestling.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the outcome was. So, and I was actually more for the Dudleys just because I love the 3D. So I was quite devastated when I realised Edge and Christian.
The Edge and Christian won back-to-back tables, ladders and chairs matches.
Back-to-back, yeah. But then that became like Edge's little thing, wasn't it? Like his TLC until John Cena. He never lost a TLC match. It was his match.
That's true. That's true. That is one hell of a match.
That was on my list. That was in my top 8. That was actually John Cena and Edge TLC. The FU through like the thousands of tables and put it down, because that feud is one of my favourite ever feuds. Cena Edge, because it was only a couple of days ago I was watching the Elimination Chamber when one of the greatest of all time, Carlito, was teaming up with another master of the art, the masterpiece, Chris Masters. That the fact that I didn't really comprehend at the time when I was watching it, because I remember watching it live, that the fact that Shawn Michaels was in it, Kurt Angle was in it, and Kane was in this. This is Kurt Angle. Forget about Kane, because this is when he was shit.
Yeah.
He had Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels in the Elimination Chamber, and the last 3 is Carlito, Chris Masters and John Cena. I can't understand why they done it, but it just amazed me when I was watching it, going, how the bloody hell has someone that spits an apple in people's faces, and then someone who just his finish.
But sometimes you've got to run with gimmicks that just don't get over easy. I mean, Chris Masters, literally came out every week, a la Braun Strowman now, and rather than people jobbing out to him in a wrestling match, jobbers would come out and he'd put the master lock on them and he'd offer them $10,000 if they could break the master lock. And this went on for months, absolute months.
Wasn't it Lashley that was the first? Was it Lashley?
Yes.
Well, Lashley was the first
set
one.
Up that wonderful feud between the pair of them.
It was fantastic. Very memorable. That was in my top 8,000 list. I wasn't quite in the top 8. But no, the Cena and Edge feud is one of my favourites of all time. Just because Edge was a disgusting heel. Like, he was coming off like the whole Matt Hardy thing, you know, with that coming into the actual becoming a storyline. You actually hated. You thought, this guy's an actual dickhead. And then he beat the fuck out of Ric Flair early that night with a briefcase, if you remember. Ric Flair was the Intercontinental Champion at the time, which baffles me, to be honest.
Yeah, well, he successfully defended that in a steel cage at Taboo Tuesday or Cyber Sunday against Triple H, just to give him some credibility as an Intercontinental Champion.
That, by the way, that pay-per-view gets stated all the time. That's one of my favourites. Is Taboo Tuesday? It went into Cyber Sunday. One of my favourites. The idea of it.
Yeah. Even though, let's be fair, no matter how many times you voted, you probably weren't getting the match you wanted.
No, but the when you, because you got to remember, I was young and I believed everything that was going on,
and you fell for it.
And I never voted because I never had enough credit on my phone. I spent it all on my celebrity, or Britain's Got Talent. So seeing the little bars go up and being like, oh, who is the special guest referee for Edge for Rated RKO versus DX, and it turned out to be, was it Bischoff? Was it?
Yeah.
He's like screwed him and that, and then Triple H got injured again. But no, I liked all that. It's good. But no, back to what was it talking about? The greatest match of all time.
Yeah, your favourite matches.
Yeah, the TLC would be in there with them two. There's too many to pick, to be honest, because each match. There's not one perfect match in WWE because I have lots of elements that need to be met. Because there's some that are fantastic matches, and they have like the hardcore side to it, but then they don't have the story. But then they'll have the story and the wrestling, but then it'll just be like a plain old roll up win and not a steel chair to the head. No Ric Flair blading. He bladed so much on that match with Edge. It was disgusting. It was a briefcase to the head and he was everywhere. He loved it, didn't he?
That's kind of was his gimmick.
Soaked himself in it. His blonde hair made it look worse with white hair.
Yeah, I can understand that. So, who's your favourite of all time?
All
time, who's your favourite?
Triple H.
Why Triple H? What is it about Triple H that appeals to you?
Like I said, I'm a heel kind of guy. If I was a wrestler, I think he is the best heel. The wrestling.
What version of Triple H? He's morphed and changed quite a bit.
Yes, but like the disgusting Triple H, like post Evolution as well as, I don't know, because Evolution, he had Ric Flair with him, and I don't like Ric Flair, so it kind of took that away. But he was a really damn good heel at that point. Like, he got gifted the belt. How you can't get any more heel than getting gifted the belt and then acting like you've earned it. Like, exactly what he done. He held it in front of everyone in a suit, and he was loving it. And then he's just a fantastic heel. The only person who comes close to him, I think, is Edge, heel-wise, like dirty heel-wise. I think Edge is the only. So that's why I now can appreciate Edge. When I was a kid, I hated his guts, I hated Triple H, but I hated that I liked him. So I love the fact that he cheated to win. You know, he like the old sledgehammer coming out. That's iconic, and his entrance is fantastic. His theme song is awesome. Like, you know, all the words to it. He has the old lifting up the arms on the side of the ring, spitting out the water. How many wrestling fans have spat out the water? Everyone has done it. Everyone has done the Triple H. And the pedigree is the greatest. I would have said is second to the super kick, but the super kick's been absolutely destroyed in recent years. But the pedigree hasn't. That's been protected, even though Rollins uses it. I'm not a fan of that. But it is the greatest finisher, I think, of all time. Apart from the only person that disagree was if Ultimate Warrior was still here. who absolutely took it like a man, got up and wiped him out within a couple of seconds, which amazes me that even was allowed to happen. But about even DX, he was the funny of the two.
Now, which version of DX? You're talking.
See, this is another thing that we're very we differ with. I absolutely love the second run. It's like a major run. Obviously, they had the little comment. I love the second run. I love when he super kicks Stan. I love when they changed the voice of Vince McMahon on the microphone and drew the I love Cox. I love Big Dick Johnson coming out of a box and in the disco lights dancing. Right, it's fantastic. Hornswoggle joining it. Then they super kick all the midget Spirit Squad getting super kicked and pedigree. Like, it's fantastic. It was hilarious. You got to remember, I was like 10 and I was watching dwarfs run out. Going, we are the Spirit Squad, running out and getting super kicked and then pedigreed. It's fantastic. It was spine busted. That run of the X, that's when I really came to like him. Was when he not only was he a disgusting heel, but he could be a face and people could love him and he was hilarious. It's fantastic. Even now, I still absolutely adore him coming back. And the fact that Kevin Owens is my current favourite wrestler. And he came back and pedigreed Rollins to gift Owens the win.
So I think it's fair to say that Triple H is
the greatest of all time.
The greatest of all time.
The greatest of all time. The greatest wrestler of all time. Okay, he's his injuries and that. But.
So if he's the greatest of all time, what's his greatest match of all time? What was his greatest match? Apart from SummerSlam 2002, because we can't keep going back to reference that. Apart from SummerSlam 2002. What is his greatest match? What match have you enjoyed with him in it that makes... Because to be the greatest of all time, yes, he's a great heel. But what match in the ring has he done the business that makes you go, yes, he's my guy?
Feud with The Rock, I really enjoyed. I really enjoy going back and watching because I think they're both ridiculously good workers.
In 2000, they had back-to-back classics.
Like this unreal matches. Hard to tell. Growing up, it sounds ridiculous, but I liked his little feud when he had his matches with Umaga.
All right, okay.
Because the last, the last one the last live event I went to, which would have been changed this Friday if it weren't for
some outside interference.
Yes, and DQ. We won the match, but not the tickets on the disqualification. Bit of sweet pill to take that one. But was the main event of that was Triple H versus Umaga and no holds barred match. So when he had his feud with Umaga, I thought was brilliant, and I also like the Triple H Hell in a Cell with Undertaker, apart from the finish, of course, because I wanted...
You have him beat the streak.
See, this is the thing, I remember we spoke about it the other day.
Yeah.
I know, in my head, is a really bad idea, but in my heart, I really wanted him to win. When he got super kicked by Shawn Michaels into the pedigree, I thought, this is it. This is fantastic. My man, Triple H... pin it. And my dad looks exactly like Triple H, especially now he's shaved his head. Triple H, that is, not my dad. Dad's been bald for years. Triple H shaved his head, looks exactly like my dad. I only realised, I was like, that's fantastic. My dad was the King of Kings. But
your favourite wrestler is Triple H because your dad looks exactly like him.
Maybe self-conscious.
Has your dad ever asked a fat Samoan to run somebody over for him? Has your dad ever pedigreed your mum on the grandest stage of them all?
No.
Just for the pop of the crowd.
Yeah, what I should have said is Triple H Booker T.
Has your dad ever stabbed his best friend in the back after calling him up after so many years and going, yeah, do you know what, let's go for a pint, and then just pedigreed him in the middle of the pub? Dad ever done anything like that?
Sadly not, but I would pay.
Sadly not? Is there a friend of your dad's that you think that your dad should pedigree?
I would love to see my dad give a pedigree. That'd be hilarious. I'd see him as more as a world's strongest slam sort of guy.
Is your dad a heel?
Dad is 100% a heel. 100% a heel. He I haven't seen him. The only picture I've seen of him smiling is of his wedding day. I found it. I was like, hey, you can smile. And he's like, yeah. If Liverpool win, he smiles. Other than that, he is 100% heel. He doesn't break kayfabe.
And that's where you get your love of heels from, not from your mum's shoe collection.
No, I don't know why I love heels. I love them. It's the comfort of them on a night out. Yeah. I honestly, I absolutely love heels. But then I liked Cena. I liked Cena growing up, but now I think it's later I've started to appreciate how tough it is to be a heel, even though it probably is harder to be a face. It's hard to get people to like you because being an arsehole to me anyway, being an arsehole comes quite easily. Getting people to like you on the other hand is a lot tougher.
It's not that hard, mate. It's not that hard. I manage it. People love me. That sounds quite heelish, actually, when you say it like that.
Exactly. So you got a bit of heel about you. Like if you cut someone's out, if you ripped up the overtime book and said, "Sorry, mate, you've only got 10 hours this week," you'd be the biggest heel in the company. No, I've always liked heels, but I don't understand why. I think it's because I like being a dick. Like I'm a nice guy at work and to my friends, but I like telling people to go fuck themselves. There's something inside of me. I don't do it. But there's something inside of me that just
So you can vicariously live through these heels.
Yeah, yes. They're living the lifestyle that I want to live.
So Chris Jericho telling somebody you're on the list
is fantastic.
Is a dream of yours.
Yeah, exactly. It's not only humorous, but it's my dream job to tell people that they're pricks and they're on my list of pricks, basically. Is what he does. He gets paid to, help out his best mate, take a few hits, and then write on a list and about 2,000 in his back pocket. Don't worry about the 300 odd other days you're on the road. That one day would be perfect. Just one day I would like to be a wrestler. To just be a heel. It would be fantastic. It would be nice, wouldn't it, if they just done I got a fan appreciation day and spent like a month or so just getting the basic training done on a fan and then letting him have a little go in the ring or cutting a promo. Fantastic. Like when I was little, I believed Santino Marella was a fan.
Oh, when he came out the crowds?
I was like, oh, hang on a sec. How come he's been picked? And I was wanting to go to...
Did the red wrestling boots underneath his black khaki trousers not give it away?
I was very oblivious. It was his booming personality that I was attracted to. Even though I wanted him to get absolutely squashed. Everyone was cheering for him. But I really wanted Umaga to kick the shit out of him. Like, you imagine that. Everyone would be like, Santino! And him going, way, shouting out the city he was in. And then the Samoan drop into a Samoan spike. Then Samoan drop through a table that's on fire. Onto Pintac is probably the best scenario that could have been for me.
You have a dark brain, don't you?
It's the kind of wrestling I'm into. That's why I like Triple H. Because he's a dark guy. You don't mess around with Triple H. You can't trust him. Look at Randy Orton. Jealousy's a bitch, to be honest, isn't it? Because
so what's wrong with Randy Orton?
When he betrayed Randy Orton in Evolution.
Yeah, but why was that Randy's fault?
Because you can't trust a guy like Triple H. Speaking kayfabe wise, you can't trust a guy like Triple H. That's like that's what I don't understand about superhero movies. When the villain, someone comes up to him, like Darth Vader, for example. Someone came up to him and was like, "Listen, we've lost the plans, mate. The team, the rebels have now got the plans for the Death Star, boy. Bit of a problem there." He chose him to death. The other 10 behind him should have been like, "Fuck me, we can't really trust this guy. Fucking leave shit stains in his toilet and he's going to choke you to death." Same with Randy Orton. You've seen, you've seen how Triple H manipulates and betrays people. You shouldn't have let him, put him on your shoulder. Because he knows how much Triple H valued. Because the whole basis of Evolution was to have that World Heavyweight Championship and not lose it. They done anything they could. That Batista was there to stop it happening. Like when Randy Orton was there, and Ric Flair, like the Elimination Chamber match, Ric Flair put him through the sledgehammer and that. Why would you trust a guy that is that hell-bent? Why would he suddenly be alright with you holding the title right in his face? The title that he wanted, that he wants. Silly.
Well, I mean, he wasn't gloating it in front of his face. That's not.
It was on Batista's shoulders.
Yeah, it was on Batista's shoulders because he just retained it against Benoit the night after he'd won it. So Evolution came down to celebrate with him, and then they turned on him.
Yeah, which you should have seen coming. I think many people probably. No, I don't know. Did you see it coming at that time?
I did, but then we're talking. What year was that? 2004.
Did you see the Batista switcheroo?
I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that one coming. Not as quickly. But then the more I look back at it and think about it, I was like, yeah, it's the next logical step. But the thing is, like, with a good faction, they have to run for a good amount of time. And I don't think Evolution got a full run out of it.
No. The Shield was done perfectly. That betrayal was
that was done. That was done perfectly because they had nothing left to do. And I know that Randy Orton had been Intercontinental Champion for a while, but he was up against with the likes of Shawn Michaels, so Triple H could go off and fight somebody else. I'm trying to think of other matches. So he fought off against Edge and quite a few others. So the next step was main event. However, they probably could have held Randy Orton off till the Rumble and then could have had the double turn. But I suppose they wanted Batista to have a world title reign himself.
I've never been a fan of Batista.
I mean, I like him as a heel because he is a natural heel.
When he was a face, but when I was growing up, he was a face for the vast majority of it. When he was on SmackDown, him, against Mark Henry, and but then when he went against the Undertaker, I guess it was kind of blurred because that's difficult when you have two faces. Because Undertaker, when I was growing up, has always been a face. Everyone's always loved him. No one hated him. Always loved. Same with Batista. From when I remember him. Is him the only time I remember him being an arsehole is him teaming up with Rey Mysterio just after Eddie Guerrero passed away. Yeah, he's my best mate. He's like, hey, Holmesy, my amigo, hey. Rey Mysterio. But he's like, Eddie's dead. Straight up. And I remember going, Jesus Christ, this is a bit much, mate. Then that's the only time I started to like it was because he said it. And when he went back to Batista bombing Eminem and winning the tag team championships, I think it could give a toss about him. I thought it was a bit shit. But when he was, I probably, if I remembered him being a heel, I probably would have been a big fan of him because he just seems like a heel.
He was better if he was a heel.
Big tattooed guy.
I loved it when it was him and John Cena going into WrestleMania. I think it was 26.
The one before the shit. The 27 was the shit one, wasn't it?
27 was the crap one. It wasn't as bad as everybody makes it out to be. It was poor, but The Miz retaining the title was the right decision. You want to build new stars, you need them to have them win big matches at big events. You can't just have them job out and then somebody goes out injured because then nobody cares.
The Miz now, in the position he was in 27, if it was The Miz now, he'd go on to have a very successful title reign. But The Miz then was a gobby little shit who no one liked. And everyone was like, why the fuck is he in the main event? Everyone, probably apart from you, was wondering why he was in the main event.
I liked him.
I had a little break. I had like a just over a year hiatus. And that was the year of The Miz. And I don't regret that at all. I think it was a fantastic decision. Because I didn't have to. I remember going back into it and going, what the fuck is going on here? Because I turned the TV on and John Cena's laying in the ring, like on a Raw, being beat up by like a few of his henchmen, whatever shit was going on. And then I saw like his upside down WWE with his M holding up the title, and I'm like, oh, how has The Miz? Before that he was like in tag teams with 3 Quarter Leg and his hat and his gloves.
Yeah, he ditched those
like
for
battling MVP.
He ditched those for trunks and kick pads. Probably the best decision he's ever made. Had a great US title run. Yeah, a little bit of a feud with Daniel Bryan, which was pretty good.
But when he was his mentor.
Yeah.
Actor.
And then when they broke out of NXT and you had the whole Nexus thing, he then went to go and feud with Miz. Yeah, he won Money in the Bank. For me personally, I think it was a good decision. And then he beats Randy Orton for the title. The only problem is he then gets booked really weak. I think it was a good decision to have him win at Mania. Definitely. They didn't utilise him afterwards, but I do like the Miz.
Imagine Cena winning there. He'd now be a 16-time champion.
Well, he won it like the next month. Beat Miz in an I Quit match, which was crap.
Cena is better than Cena or R-Truth, but
I know. I mean, R-Truth, pretty shit hot. No, he's not. He's terrible.
He's been around for years.
He's terrible. K Quick and Road Dogg.
Do you remember when he came back?
D-O-double-G and K Quick getting rowdy.
When he was fired with The Miz, and they came back and beat the shit out of everyone in the Hell in a Cell and shut the cage, locked the door.
Yeah.
And everyone's like trying to pull it out, and there's them with like a bat in normal clothes. He goes, yeah. That just amazed me. It's quite entertaining though, seeing R-Truth. And that because he stopped his bullshit singing, then he just came down to his music. That's the backing music. People still said what's up, and he'd be like, shut up. Fantastic.
See, the thing is, at that time, they didn't really have many main event caliber stars, and they kind of like forced people into that position, and it was shit. Was it R-Truth and John Cena in a tables match? Was the main event of Capital Punishment? No.
I feel bad for the people that paid. I remember my first pay-per-view. I watched it for free, actually, at Butlins, in a hotel in Butlins. It was Great American Bash, 2005.
Okay.
First time I ever watched a pay-per-view. Before, my mum wouldn't pay, because no one cared about wrestling in my house, apart from me. They wouldn't pay 15 quid, 10 quid, 15 quid for me to watch it. So that was the first time I watched it. I remember, I don't think who it was. Might have been 2005, might have been 2006. Bobby Lashley was big on the scene at the time.
2006, I think.
Must have been 2006. I remember him coming out, and I remember seeing it. I can't remember who he was facing, but that one match, I saw half the pay-per-view, and it got to like 3 in the morning, or like half 2 in the morning. Mum woke up and realised I was in the room watching it. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? You're like, I got like 10 years old watching this at like 2:30, 3 in the morning, wrapped up in my covers, just staring at the screen with like bloodshot eyes, watching Bobby Lashley like, bum 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 all into the ring. That was the first pay-per-view I remember ever watching. Ever since then, I watched every single Mania. Bought every single Mania. The Christmas money.
I'm trying to think of the first one I got, because I used to watch them at half term. Half term or school holidays are the ones I used to watch. But I think the first one I ever stayed up to watch was No Mercy 2000. Yeah, because I think it fell in the half term in the October. And No Mercy 2000 was the return of Stone Cold against Rikishi in a no holds barred match. They got stopped by the police. Weird. And then it was Kurt Angle versus The Rock in the main event. Kurt Angle won his first WWF title, as it was then. Now WWE title. It was Kurt Angle with Stephanie McMahon.
Oh, that's a weird one.
Yeah. So Steph was in Kurt's corner. McMahon guarantee on Sunday Night Heat before it even started. So he had to swap from Channel 4 to the Sky Box Office so you could watch Sunday Night Heat first, and it was a McMahon guarantee that would be a new champion, and The Rock lost due to shenanigans. Upset me greatly. Nearly cried.
Because the greatest of all time is The Rock.
The greatest of all time is The Rock. Not my greatest of all time. The greatest of all time is The Rock.
Not that long enough to be the greatest of all time. Didn't put in the shift. But the greatest of all time is Triple H, and no one will make me budge, even if Triple H is, he kills both his kids and then murders Stephanie McMahon. Still the greatest of all time. It's like Chris Benoit, one of the greatest of all time. One of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Madman. But he's giving it's boring as fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we should delve too much into the Benoit, although there is a movie coming out. Are you going to watch it?
100%. How often does a wrestling movie come out? The wrestler made me cry though.
But how do you think it's going to make you feel?
The Benoit movie?
The Benoit movie. I don't.
Is it gonna? Do you reckon it's gonna delve into the nasty side of?
Yeah, of course.
Wrestling?
The whole side of it is that it's gonna delve into his personal story, including the.
But it won't all be factual. They'll elaborate on. They'll go way over the top with some of the facts. Like if he had a concussion and the doctors found it.
Yeah, but they didn't find it. Not in time. I don't know how the film's planning on finishing, but I know personally I don't want to. Well, I mean I do because obviously it's a true story. But I don't want to come out of the cinema feeling sympathy for him. I don't want them to put a perspective on it when they go, do you know what? Actually, yeah, he was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. But I don't want to come out of it going, he was all right, wasn't he?
That's
just
true.
a bit messed in the head.
It's very difficult.
I don't want that to happen.
It's very difficult when I guess someone like that does something like that, because if he was a random guy, if he didn't have that wrestling career, he has worked in an office 8 till 5 all his life, and then done that, he'd be seen as disgusting human being. No one would even mention him anymore, and then there'd be documentaries into his personal life of why, he was touched as a kid, and then that's what made him do it. Bullshit like that. Because he's a wrestler, it's very difficult. Very difficult to say bad things about him because many people cheered his name. Many people celebrated his win, his main,
Of course they did. Of course they did.
But then some people think to themselves, oh my god, part of my life, I've got a bloody, like I did. Chris Benoit toy. So I technically have a toy of a murderer. I have a toy of a murderer. And it's hard to put that in perspective. That I now have a toy of a guy that killed his wife and kids. It's incredible. But it's a very awkward situation to be put in because it's like WWE celebrating his life. I'm saying
that was one of the most ridiculous nights of Monday Night Raw I've ever seen. Ever. Why, when you don't know the facts, would you... Say, for example, you were centre forward for England, right? You then die in what looks like a massacre, right? But we don't know what the thing is. Why would I then make sure that I would put a tribute of you on TV, a little documentary about how great you were as a player, when we don't know the full facts of the case? Like Vince McMahon came out and just went, do you know what? Thanks for everything you ever did. Because then the next week he comes up and he goes, we're never going to mention his name ever again. Yeah, he was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. When you put it in a bit of perspective, like you just said, you've got a toy of a guy who's murdered his wife and kids. How do you view that? How do you process in your mind your thoughts of Chris Benoit?
I don't hate nor like him. There's nothing there for it. When people say Chris Benoit,
does it not evoke anything in you?
Nothing at all. Not one bit of emotion, really. Not one bit. I didn't like him enough as a wrestler. I just thought, yeah, okay, he's having a few United States matches. You know, he has like 20 United States Championship matches against Booker T, which were good matches, but didn't really interest me that much. Didn't really take much notice of him. I just know he just looked like a moody prick. He just walked down to the ring. He was so boring. Like, he just walked down the ring with a straight face. Didn't do any like fireworks or anything. Just walked. Didn't he? Just walked, went up the steps, got in, wrestled, put his hands up in the air to celebrate. Pissed off, went for a pint. You know, with Al Snow or something like that. Sounds a good guy. But then you see this. So it wasn't part of me that goes, oh, no, if say, can you imagine if someone like The Rock, Stone Cold, Cena, Triple H, or Michaels, Undertaker, Kane, anyone like that done that would be unreal. Like the shit that would I don't even know how I'd feel if Triple H went and done that. But being Chris Benoit, the reason I had no emotional attachment to him, so
he's just a normal guy that you just read in the news.
Yeah, it didn't feel much different. He just seems like just a typical murderer to me. It's not like, oh, my hero. Can you imagine if he was your role model? If he was your guy. If he was your role model, and he's now a murderer. Your role model, the guy you've looked up to, who you've based your morals on and stuff like that, has just killed his family. Where the hell do you go from there?
So
I never had any attachment to him.
Can you watch him if you watch anything back on the network?
I can happily watch him. I'm really into that shit though. I like all murder stuff.
So you can watch a WWE pay-per-view
with Benoit in. I watched many, yeah,
and not feel anything when you see him on the screen.
The only thing that goes through my mind is that guy is a murderer, and no one knew. Like, no one knew he was capable of it at that time. The only thing I think is like people cheering him, people wrestling with him, the commentators saying how good Benoit is. None of them knew. No one probably didn't even imagine what that man was capable of. So it's astonishing.
Because I find it really hard to watch him.
Yeah?
I find it really hard to watch it. Yeah.
Why? Why is that?
I don't know. I think maybe it's because when I started watching, he turned up on WWE TV in 2000 and he was a constant until obviously his death. I find it really hard to watch him. I have watched matches where he's in.
Can you listen to his music?
No. Well, I can.
I love his theme song.
I can't listen to it without feeling awful.
I used to use it quite recently when I play on trampoline with my little brother. I used to use it as my theme song. Didn't think much of it. I don't know why I don't feel any emotion towards it. I don't feel no emotion towards him. So the fact they've done it, it's an awful thing that happened, of course.
Yeah,
but
and we're not condoning it by any stretch of the imagination.
No, God no. But I could happily sit down and watch a Chris Benoit match. But I'd happily see him
only because if you didn't like him as a character.
As a character, like his wrestling was really good. Like he's a fantastic performer, but his gimmick, his character is just, I don't know, it's just so boring, so lackluster. It didn't seem like he actually didn't seem like he didn't give a shit about being there. He just turned up, done a few suplexes, diving headbutt, crossface. walked out of the arena. That's why I don't understand why he was so over. So many people loved him.
I think it's put it in perspective, and it's quite hard because obviously I have that emotional connection to watching him on TV, and then knowing what he's done. It's kind of like if I was introducing you as a new fan to him. It's like the Daniel Bryan movement, right? Not as big, the Daniel Bryan movement, because he was so good as a technical wrestler, as somebody who could do the basics, wrestle a 5-star match. No bones about it, he could do it. And at the end of the match that's on one of my lists, which is him against Kurt Angle at the Royal Rumble in 2003, at the end of that match, he gets a standing ovation. Even though he lost, he gets a standing ovation because he put on a wrestling clinic. Excuse me. He put on probably one of the greatest matches because he was that good as a wrestler. As a character, tosh. Absolute tosh.
I guess if you're that good.
His gimmick when he first came in was breaking people's necks. That was his gimmick. He had a t-shirt that had Fear the Crippler, and it was literally an X-ray of a broken neck. See, and that's all his t-shirt was.
If he had that character, I probably would have loved him because I loved Kurt Angle. I thought he is probably one of the funniest wrestlers I've ever watched. When he sings Shawn Michaels' theme song, when his feud with Cena, when I think it is.
But when he comes out in the Jacksonville Jaguar jersey,
and then and then when the dwarf Kurt Angle comes out and he does his little put his arms up in the air and the fireworks go off. That's fantastic. Because he could wrestle like a god. He was a wrestling god. If you're going by like technical wise, he's probably the greatest of all time within the ring. And man, his character was fantastic. Even when he was a heel, he was funny. He was so funny. But then when he was serious, like he could be proper serious. Like with Lesnar, his feud with Lesnar, he was serious all the way through. That's fantastic. But with like comedic wise, he was really good. That's the kind of guy I like. If Chris Benoit had that sort of element, probably would have been a massive fan of him.
Yeah, he was very much a straight down the line kind of guy, and he actually transitioned from heel into a face just based on his in-ring work. That's literally what got him over, was his in-ring work. Because if you look at it from, say SummerSlam 2000, he has one of the best 2 out of 3 Falls matches with Chris Jericho, which is one of my favourites. And he goes from that, and then by the time it comes down to WrestleMania, it's him versus Kurt Angle, WrestleMania 17, in an open challenge match. Because Kurt Angle was annoyed he didn't have a match on the card. So Chris Benoit came out and he went, I'll fight you. And then literally from that night on, he was a face. But only because Kurt Angle was a heel, and he was a really good wrestler, and he beat him. And his gimmick never really changed. He still went around with his X-ray t-shirt on. Broke away from the Radicals, but that's about as far as it goes.
Jericho is timeless.
Jericho is, but
he's someone
Jericho just reinvents himself all the time.
My favourite one is the suit.
The suit with the long words.
Slow talking, long word. The suit that was incredible. That's fantastic. When he came in with that, even now he's fantastic. Because he went a small period of time where he was just nothing. He was just there, and they used to bring him in because they know he was such a good wrestler. And then he started with this whole stupid idiot thing, which then boomed off, and now it's evolved into the list, which is the most over thing on Raw, which is incredible because it's just a piece of paper on a clipboard. It's the most popular thing going in wrestling, which is incredible. He was the first person I saw on the screen, and he's probably because he's so entertaining. I love watching his old WCW stuff. Yeah, I love it. His feud with Goldberg, which was non-existent because Goldberg never acknowledged he had a feud with Chris Jericho. And bringing out Goldberg in that is fantastic. Jericho challenging Goldberg to a fight, and then having the ref announce him as the winner by count out is hilarious. Or a no-show, disqualification, or something like that. You never seen any of them?
I have seen them.
And then he done the 1,000 holds, didn't he?
The 1,004 holds, because Dean Malenko was famous for his gimmick, which was I am the man of 1,000 holds. So Jericho went, I'm the man of 1,004 holds, and every 5th hold was an armbar. Number 1, armbar. Number 2, snapmare. Number 3, arm drag. Number 4, armbar. And then we cut to a commercial break. And he left on like 170 and came back at like 780. The 781 was armbar.
Brilliant.
And I'm pretty sure on his ring gear he had 1,004 holds as well.
Did he?
For a little while, yeah.
So I love that. I love that Jericho. I didn't really enjoy him that much when he was world heavyweight. I don't know actually. But when he beat Undertaker from Shawn Michaels featuring Musican, I wasn't that bothered by him that much at the time. That's just a way to get set up the Undertaker feud, wasn't it?
Yeah, but only, I think, because Shawn Michaels was supposed to win the Rumble.
Really?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he was supposed to win the Rumble. Because when you watch it back, unless it's really good acting, which a lot of them are not capable of, when you watch it back, I think Batista's supposed to lean over to try and grab him, to make it look like he's pushing him, but he's supposed to hold on. And then Shawn Michaels slips off the apron, but it doesn't look like a natural slip. And then Batista looks like he's about to get his ass kicked when he goes backstage. Shawn Michaels is legitimately like, what the hell's going on? And they redo it in the ring, and they're like, right, what could we do? What could we do with the title if anything goes wrong? Give it to Edge. Edge versus Jericho, because they were a tag team before Edge got injured. Jericho basically denounced him. So they needed to get the title on Jericho. Elimination Chamber was perfect for it. But I'm pretty sure Shawn Michaels is. I'm not 100% factual on that, but the way that it looks and from things that I've read, I'm pretty sure
Batista's
he was supposed
quite
to win.
prone to a fuck up in the Rumble, isn't he? With him and Cena back in the...
When McMahon rips both quads, a la Kevin Nash. He's like, I miss Diesel so much, what can I do? And what do they call it? Imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So he obviously loves Kevin Nash so much that he ripped both of his own quads.
Sat on the floor,
for the
shouting
lols.
at shouting at Batista and Cena. Restart the match! Restart the match!
Yeah, but ironically, Batista and John Cena both ended up with world title matches at that year's WrestleMania. So maybe it wasn't a botch.
I don't know. I don't think Vince.
My money's on a botch, but yeah.
I was gonna say because you know how quick he got in that ring, tearing those quads. He wouldn't have stood in the ring like that if he weren't pissed off. He would have gone up the steps. He would have done his walk, like really fast though. Then gone up the steps, then gone in the ring and walked around the ring, then shouted at him. He flew down the ramp, smashed both quads, getting in the ring to have a go. It's got a bit of botch on it.
So there we have it, guys. Thank you ever so much for listening in to the very first podcast that we have recorded together. We are hopefully going to be doing one of these every week going forwards. Next week's one is going to be all around the Survivor Series. So we're going to do a preview of this year's Survivor Series, and we're also going to let you in on a little insight into our favourite matches from Survivor Series history. Thank you very much for joining us on today's podcast, and you'll hear back from us very, very soon.